What I'm about to tell you today will make your blood run cold. Two stories of caving gone wrong, where the darkness underground became a deadly trap. The first story is particularly disturbing. A man spends 36 days in an underground labyrinth, on the brink of madness and death.
Imagine being lost in total darkness, with no landmark, no hope.
That's exactly what happened to our first protagonist. On December 20th, 2004, in the small village of Maitron in southwestern France, Jean-Luc Josias, a 47-year-old man, left his home without a word to his wife and 15-year-old son. For months, depression had been eating away at him like a silent poison. That evening, he got into his Land Rover, slipped a bottle of whiskey and a bottle of sleeping pills into his jacket, and headed for the limestone hills overlooking the village. Night falls as Jean-Luc parks his vehicle in front of the gaping entrance to an old mushroom farm dug into the underground caves. He stands motionless in the silence for a moment, then turns on his flashlight and gets out, leaving the door open behind him. He ventures into the underground tunnels, the bottle of whiskey in his hand. What Jean-Luc doesn't realize is that he has just entered a real nightmare. This old mushroom farm is not just a cave, but a gigantic underground labyrinth, originally dug as a chalk mine. The tunnels stretch for nearly 9 kilometers beneath the hills, a bewildering maze of blind corridors, winding passages, and dead ends carved out of the limestone. Jean-Luc ventures deeper into the darkness, turning left, then right, with no particular destination in mind. Without a map or navigation system, he is completely lost in just a few minutes. The underground tunnels are so similar that when he tries to retrace his steps, it is impossible to tell whether he is going back the way he came or venturing deeper into the labyrinth. But the worst is yet to come. After a few hours, the batteries in his flashlight begin to run low. The beam grows dimmer with each passing minute until it finally goes out, plunging Jean-Luc into total darkness. Without light, his sense of direction disappears instantly. He continues forward, hands outstretched, groping along the cold, damp walls. The ground beneath his feet becomes increasingly muddy. In a particularly muddy corridor, the earth turns into thick sludge that sticks to his shoes. When he tries to take another step, both shoes are sucked into the mud with a dull, imperceptible sound. Now Jean-Luc is barefoot, continuing to stumble in total darkness. The temperature in the caves remains a constant 54 degrees Fahrenheit, cool enough to be uncomfortable for a man without proper clothing or shelter. His fingers slide along the rough limestone walls as he desperately searches for a clue to the exit. Each corridor leads to another, identical in its darkness, indistinguishable in its twists and turns. Jean-Luc frequently thinks he recognizes a particular turn or texture in the wall, believing he has returned to a previous location, only to discover that he is in a previously unknown section of the labyrinth. This false familiarity is cruelly deceptive. Just when he thinks he is turning back toward the entrance, he is actually venturing deeper into the bowels of the underground network. During the first 24 hours, Jean-Luc's initial confusion turns into mounting panic. The human hippocampus, that primitive region of the brain equipped with millions of neurons designed to create cognitive maps of our environment, becomes useless in total darkness. Without visual cues or landmarks, his brain's navigation equipment fails completely. His sense of time also begins to distort. With no daylight to mark the passing hours, the feeling of being hopelessly lost intensifies with every step. What makes his situation particularly frightening is the sensation of going around in circles, yet every attempt to correct his course only seems to lead him deeper into the underground labyrinth. By the third day, hunger and thirst become Jean-Luc's main concerns. His whiskey is gone, and he never swallowed the sleeping pills. Desperately thirsty, he discovers that water sometimes drips from the limestone ceiling. He positions himself under these natural taps, catching the precious drops on his tongue. When the dripping slows, he presses his mouth directly against the cave walls, sucking moisture from the porous stone. His stomach cramps from hunger. After nearly a week underground, Jean-Luc begins to adapt to his circumstances. Crawling on all fours in the darkness, he searches the ground like an animal, finding substances he can consume, eats clay from the tunnel floor and gnaws on pieces of rotten wood left behind by mushroom pickers. The material is barely digestible but calms the gnawing pain in his stomach. Sleep comes in fits and starts in this world without light. Jean-Luc discovers old plastic tarps abandoned by the mushroom pickers and wraps himself in them to keep warm, creating a nest in a relatively dry corner of the labyrinth. Without the rhythms of day and night, his sleeping patterns become erratic. Sometimes he curls up for what seems like minutes, only to wake up feeling like days have passed. As the days stretch into weeks, Jean-Luc's psychological state undergoes remarkable changes. At times, despair overwhelms him completely. During a particularly dark period, perhaps 2 weeks after the start of his ordeal, he finds a piece of rope left behind by the mushroom pickers. With methodical care he shapes it into a noose in case things become unbearable. Strangely, Jean-Luc also experiences unexpected moments of deep calm as his mind adapts to the absolute disorientation. He sometimes slips into meditative states, allowing his thoughts to soften and unravel. Instead of fighting the darkness and confusion, he surrenders to it. In these moments, he floats through the tunnels in peaceful detachment, singing softly, his voice echoing through the empty chambers. By the 4th week, Jean-Luc's body had undergone dramatic changes. His once robust stature had withered to skeletal proportions, his 165-pound body losing nearly a third of its weight. His nails had grown long and broken from constantly scratching the stone walls. A beard grew on his face, reaching several inches in length. His bare feet hardened into calloused pads, adapted to the rough floors of the tunnels. On January 23, 2005, exactly 36 days after Jean-Luc entered the tunnels, 3 teenagers from the village decided to explore the old mushroom farm. Just a few meters from the entrance, they discovered the Land Rover, its driver's door still open exactly as Jean-Luc had left it more than a month earlier. Alarmed by this strange discovery, the boys immediately contacted the police. The authorities dispatched a search team, which entered the labyrinth with powerful lights and appropriate equipment. After 90 minutes of methodical searching, in a room only 180 meters from the entrance, they found Jean-Luc Josias. He was pale as a ghost from a lack of sunlight, emaciated to the point of being skeletal, and had grown a long wild beard, but remarkably he was alive. The team carefully extracted Jean-Luc from the tunnels and rushed him to the nearest hospital. The doctors were stunned by his condition. Despite severe dehydration and malnutrition, he had no life-threatening injuries. The remarkable adaptability of the human body had allowed him to survive on minimal sustenance in an environment that should have been fatal within days. This story demonstrates something fascinating about the human brain. When deprived of its ability to navigate and stripped of sensory input, it responds in unexpected ways. Jean-Luc's oscillations between despair deep enough to contemplate suicide and a meditative calm deep enough to find peace in absolute darkness highlight the remarkable plasticity of the brain. But this first story is only a prelude to what follows. Our second story shows how a situation can go from nothing to a life-or-death struggle in just a few seconds.